Welcome to the In My Opinion Show with Ronald Berry Robinson and friends, seen on the internet 24 hours, 7 days a week. I want to introduce our very talented co-hosts and stars, Mr. Henry Hatter.
Thank you, Ron.
Miss Jackie Williams.
Thank you, everyone.
Miss Denise Smith-Allen.
Hi, Ron. How's everybody?
Good, thank you.
The In My Opinion Show wants to welcome our millions of viewers worldwide. Let's talk about Fidel Castro. Fidel Castro is dead, the former president of Cuba. Why are people parading in American streets with happiness and in Cuba sadness? Denise?
What is my opinion? Well, for one thing, Fidel Castro, to the people who resided in Cuba, understood their form of government and, for the most part, accepted that form of government and were happy with what they experienced. Therefore, they had their frame of reference, whereas the American people may not agree and didn't have a frame of reference to go by. There were certainly people, as we've had various discussions in the past about, there's always going to be people who are not in favor of a certain form of government or the governing party. So therefore those persons left, and a lot of them ended up in Florida and moved on and had a better way of life, so to speak. Okay, in Cuba, and I say this from a historical perspective, there are factions, and we'll say it like this: there's a color line even there. There are dark Cubans and there are light Cubans, and there's Cubans that would quote unquote come to this country and pass for white, okay, or assimilate into our culture. So what we have in Cuba, we have people who, again, because of what their experience was, they are saddened because Cuba's way of life is totally different than what we understand. He was an elected official. He was, to some, the dictator. He had a number of years in which he incorporated and explained his philosophy about how things were to be done. But they believed in a communal form of living, whereas things were evenly distributed. And some people have a hard time with that because we are an economic system that deals with, if you have money and influence, you have power, and who wants to mess with that? We like that, okay? Over there, it's a different ball game. So again, people are saddened by that. But the people who, didn't agree with it, they left. And they're here on, American soil. Some of them are now second, third generations. And they're happy being here. So those persons were glad that he passed. But they have family members that are still over there, okay? And so now, because of President Obama's overtures, we now have a relationship with Cuba. And I believe that those people who have been estranged from their families will have an opportunity now to be a part of their lives. So those are my comments.
Well, let's go back into history a little bit. Back to Cuba. All right, prior to the revolution that took place, the United States and the mafia, all right, and the U.S. big business were over there in Cuba. Okay, they were sucking up all the money. All right, and a whole host of other things. That's why the president of Batista got overthrown. All right, he left that island. Actually, his life was at stake with over $300 million of U.S. dollars. That's the reason why Castro, all right, a lawyer, came out of the hills. All right, developed his network with the with the dissidents, if that's the proper word to call them, so that they could have democracy in Cuba. All right, now I've talked to people about the conditions in Cuba. They tell me not all of them, but the vast majority of them, they tell me that, life is okay. All right, there. Now, but when you hear these sound bites on television, it's totally opposite. All right? So, people have to start thinking for themselves. Do the research. It's just as simple. Look up Cuban history on the internet if you have it. If you don't have internet, go to your public library and read about the history. Stop listening to other people that, in most cases, they don't know what the heck they're talking about. Look for yourself. Henry, what is your thought?
Well, like Denise said, there were people who understood their own frame of government and way of life. And Fidel Castro, to all people, was not a Greek god. He hurt a lot of people as a dictator. And many of them would never forgive him. And they, as you said, moved to Florida. And what you see parading in the street are people who were hurt by Castro. And they migrated here hoping to find a new way of life, and did so, and left their families back in Cuba who were still being hurt by the dictator in many ways. And from an American perspective, as to whether the traditional American should be celebrating or not, I would say this. We had many businesses over there before 1958 when Castro took over. We had sugar mills. We poured lots of American capital into developing Cuba. It is the way it is because of American venture capital. It had a great atmosphere for entertainers who would love to go there and buy property and celebrate their successes here in the United States. And it was a great combination for the United States. That's why many of the Americans today want to move back there, because it is valuable as a money resource and a product resource for the country, trade. And besides, it's a strategic spot to protect the American mainland. You don't think about that. We like to have strategic islands surrounding the United States as barriers to the invasion by other bodies, countries.
And also, too, I think a lot of this anger from the United States is because when Castro took power, he nationalized all of those businesses.
That's what I mean,
Yeah.
the sugar mills.
See?
The Mott's owned a lot of.
All right. And you can't have a foreign country coming in there, okay, and taking your natural resources,
Right.
all right, and not leaving anything other than the crumbs,
Right.
for the people, okay, and the ones that came over here, all right, most of them were in prison. He dumped the prisons, all right. I probably would have did the same thing. Because many of those people that were in prison, you know what I mean, were troublemakers. Okay, maybe they probably worked for those national companies. Okay, now wake up in the morning, their livelihood is gone. Okay, so he said, "The heck with this, you're out of here." All right, and that's exactly what he did. I probably would have did the same thing, because those same individuals would have kept causing havoc. Okay. Everywhere.
But he took
Jackie,
all their
what's your
rights.
thoughts?
He took all their rights from them. They didn't have any rights. They were oppressed. They were depressed. They were poor. They didn't have ways to take care of themselves. And he was riding high on the hog, and it was hard for, I heard a lady say it's hard for her to even look at him because he tore up her family. And the ones that were there, they worked for nothing. And he would just beat them mentally, and they just didn't have any encouragement, any vision. And by him being gone, they see it as a light where now we can come, now we can do this. We don't have that, but I thought they were saying that the brother is still alive. Am I right?
Wow.
Yes, he's in
He's the
charge.
president.
Yeah, and they said that he is loyal to Fidel. You know,
Yeah.
they said he is loyal to him, so it's not all the way gone yet.
It isn't, but the doors are opening, and the whole idea. I think about when Michael Moore did the movie where he was talking about what happened with 9/11 and the first responders and the health crisis that they experienced. A lot of them had, lung problems and things like that, and they weren't getting the health care that they needed, and a lot of them had to go over there where their healthcare system took care of people that should have been, a first responder that dealt with all of that. We should always take care of our own in that regard. But they weren't able to get the services, and a lot of them are very, very sick. Some of them have died. But when they went over there to Cuba, they got the health care. They got what they needed, and they got it at a very reduced rate. You know what I'm saying? So there were some very good things that were established. I mean, we know that there weren't some good things, but when you're talking about the health of your country, that's important. And like I said, with the responders, I mean, that's fact.
And also, too, it's been documented that Cuban healthcare is close to first rate around the world.
Exactly.
They graduate more doctors than any university.
Wow.
In the world.
Are they voodoo doctors?
No. Don't even start.
We're serious.
Don't start.
Okay, I just want to know.
And we have to acknowledge that. All right, it's no different than over here. You have good and you have evil.
That's right.
Okay, and the fact of the matter is, there's millions of people over there on that island. Okay, certainly they want to see their their loved ones and so forth. You see, and I can understand that. But there's a price that, I guess that you have to pay, just like we do here. Okay? What if we opened up our prisons and sent 3 million people, which I think that's estimated, that are in our prison system right now, to Canada? You know what I mean?
All hell would break
Like
loose.
what you were saying, this lady you were saying said that, she doesn't like this and she doesn't like that. Well, but that's her soundbite. We don't know what her true history is, and the news media, they're the first ones. That's what makes me so angry about the news media. Okay, they're supposed to report the news, not make the news.
They've fallen.
Okay.
They've fallen a long time ago.
Yeah, the irony of Cuba's situation to the American situation, I'm going to focus on us as Black Americans, is all the things that they endure, they can do nothing about it. And there's no shield of protection for them. But in this country, we have a shield of protection. We have the Constitution. We have to make it work for us.
Well, if you
Go ahead. Well, those of us who don't believe in the Constitution, that's their loss. But it must be enough Black Americans to make this work, not only for themselves, but for the country. And we got to stop thinking as though we're isolated from the main body of Americans, because we're not. We're part of it. We're integral to it. And we have to seize that kind of gesture and position as we move into the future. This century is our century.
That's fine if everything was equal.
It's
Okay.
but if
No, but listen. I liked what you said. I really do, Henry. But here's the thing about our Constitution. Our Constitution also had some amendments. Okay, and one of the amendments was the 13th Amendment.
Yeah.
And in the 13th Amendment, as it relates to Black folks, it talked about our freedom, but it also talked about unless you were convicted of a crime. It's in there. Those words, if you're convicted of a crime. So Ava DuVernay did a wonderful piece, which all of us need to look at. I've already seen it, and I would encourage you to watch it too. It's called 13, and it talks about how our system, and I don't mean to go off on this tangent because I know what we're talking about here, but you made the point about making this system work for us. Well,
we got to do that.
We have to do that, but what we have to do is understand it and read it.
Yeah.
See, we didn't pay attention because that that line that was put in there, that set the whole stage up for this whole mass incarceration piece and all of this as far as it relates to getting free labor basically from black folks again and making us, pretty much chattel slave through the criminal justice system. Okay? So please, I'm encouraging you. It's called 13 Ava DuVernay.
Okay, it sounds wonderful to me.
Yes, okay.
But we have to have our own vision of where we want to go. We have to have our own energy and enthusiasm to move that way. If we don't have energy and enthusiasm, and I see where we are here, we like to lie around in our body fluids and complain and blame everybody else and do nothing for ourselves.
Not
and
at
it's
all.
time. I got your backs though when Mr. Trump takes and all black Americans as well as other Americans that I'm a part of to make sure that all of this are counted, and that's where we have to go. And we got to demand it, and we got to work for it. It won't come easy.
Okay, I hear
It'll be
you.
tough,
I
and
hear
most
you.
people who are not tough to fighting these battles need not come.
Yeah, but
But those of us who
But you have to equip people to help them to understand how to fight.
Right.
You can't bring
Our
a gun.
school-
You can't bring a gun to a knife fight. You understand? Or I should say the other way around. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You have to be prepared. Gun for gun, knife for knife. You have to be prepared to deal with the situation. And so many people, for whatever reason, are out of the loop. Okay, so you're talking about, like I said, if we go back and we're talking about how all of this affects us as black folks, how do you prepare them? Okay, you say, we have to take the Constitution and look at it and make it work
It
for
was
us.
theirs for us to use.
I understand that, Henry, and I'm saying to you, give me one example of one way in which we could do it. Just give me one.
Well, first of all, we have to learn how to strategize together. We have to learn how to trust each other. We have to let our best people form the platform of leadership. You can't have everybody darting off in every direction they want to go. And that divides us, and it keeps us from rising.
Right.
It's still going on in the schools. Our kids are not prepared for the role that they will assume by 2050. And we say it's okay.
No, we don't. We don't say it's okay.
Hold it, guys. You don't go out and support and promote
You don't know.
the needs of black Americans, the young ones,
I do.
and I'm glad that you do. I think I've heard that before. To be the best, the second best to nobody in math and chemistry and science, political science, whatever it is, you be the best. We can always be the best in sports, but we never drive our kids to be academically the best and to be the cultural group that can work with each other, like every other culture on this continent, in this United States, can work well together to put strategies together to serve their interest, except the ones I'm looking at.
Why is
And
that, Henry?
that's why.
Why
I'm
is
so,
that,
I don't
Henry?
know.
Yes, you
but
do.
No, I don't.
Yes,
No,
you
You're
do.
an educator.
I don't know. I don't
Why
know.
are you talking about something if you don't know about it?
Well, I'm talking about the weakness of the system.
Well, then
that
now
we-
you sound like you're laying in your body fluids.
How is that?
Because you're talking about a problem. And
Yes,
I'm asking,
I am. I'm
you're
talking about
the
the
But you
problem.
lack the solution.
You don't.
Where's the
You're not
solution?
giving me the solution. You're not giving me the solution.
But I don't have the kind of individuals that are capable of working with me.
Okay. Even these people sitting at the table.
No, you guys are wallowing in your body fluids, afraid of everything, afraid of Donald Trump,
I'm not
afraid
afraid
of white men.
No.
afraid of this. Yeah,
Let me
yeah.
tell you something, Mr. Hatter.
Yes.
I, for one, am not afraid
I don't
of
believe it.
anything or
I don't
anybody.
believe it.
You know.
Okay?
I don't
So
believe
we're
it.
getting off. We're getting
But
off.
yeah,
the,
absolutely. But
No, you
as
guys
it
are getting
relates,
subjugated by your own BS.
No.
No,
Let's
the
talk
BS
about what we
subjugated
talked
by your
about.
BS, okay?
Yeah.
'Cause you-
How has the influence of Fidel Castro's death? How has that impacted us? How has that impacted us? Okay, we sit on the sideline because again, we are not born Cubans. Okay.
No.
All right.
But we have an identity.
We do. And that's, I mentioned that early on, because like I said, when the boat came over here and dropped us off on this soil here, it went along the way. It went to South America, and it also stopped at Cuba.
Sure.
Okay. And therefore, like I said, there's a caste system over there as well. And we're not dealing with that. We're not recognizing that. But if you took a panoramic view of the people who are there, a lot of them are our complexion.
You know,
Okay, and I say that, because race is a construct, okay? It's a construct. We're a human race. So let's be clear about that. The
But there are
divisiveness that came
distinctions,
about,
yeah.
the divisiveness came about is because of chattel slavery. So that's where we got.
that's a perspective.
No, that's the
But we don't know.
reality.
If we were
That's the
raised to
reality.
be one of the authoritarian cultures on this continent, we would rise to dominate. And, well, we don't want to dominate, but we want to be equal to anybody else. Everybody and anybody else who pays back to society its dues, or who leads the country. You never want to be second best. You never want to be the losers. And what frustrates me is all the losers I see from day to day.
I see winners. I see losers. I mean, but there is, a difference. But
And
I want to
we're
go
not-
back to what you said about the education, and that's one thing. I mean, if it's talking about Mexico, if it's talking about them, I noticed that so many people value education more than us because they see it as a stepping ladder to stepping out of your situation or your body fluids, as you would say.
Yes.
And we don't utilize it because we don't force our children to be. We make them go to school, but we don't force them to be academically inclined. We don't enforce it when they come home. Our thing is, our job is over once they go to school and they come home. No, this is when you take up the second leg. This is when you help them, because that's how they're able to graduate so many doctors, because their parents are pushing them.
Absolutely.
And so we can pull that out of that. The positive thing out of that is, if you're graduating doctors, they're not graduating doctors that's on the internet all day doing absolutely nothing. They're actually studying, and they're comprehending, and they're applying. This is what we need to take from that.
Thank you, Jackie.
That's
You
what we
need to say nothing else. I'm on your side.
Oh, wow. Wow.
For once.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah, for once, I'm on your side. You got it right.
I mean, because that's what we need to stand. I mean, all of us need to just rise up and say, am I being the best steward over my child? Because we're looking at the evidence. And the evidence is pointing to that we're not doing our job. Our kids are not prepared to leave the house, let alone leave the country.
All right.
Exactly.
Okay.
I'm so glad that we came together on that one, because maybe we can make something happen. And maybe the people out there who are listening for us will understand that they have a job to do, that we collectively have it to. It's just not Henry Hatter versus the three of us at this table.
No.
It's Henry Hatter with a perspective, and one that you don't like to hear, and one that you don't like to see. But I'm in a world where those things rise up all the time, and I see both sides. I see our side and I see their side. And I fight against them both ways. And it's frustrating for me not to ever be on a side that my culture says I ought to be on.
Let's change gears here for a minute. Why are we celebrating Thanksgiving in America? Who wants to tackle that one?
Well, I think it's basically the inculcation. We have been instructed from elementary school on about the Pilgrims and all of that other good stuff, and how they sat down with the Indians and had their first meal together. I mean, this was an indoctrination. We were taught that. Okay, as we went through the system and we see the inequities and all of that other kind of stuff, Thanksgiving takes on a whole new connotation, at least to me personally. I enjoy Thanksgiving. It's a time for me to sit down with my family and also to reverence my God and thank Him for the various things that have happened in my life and for my family. So I enjoy Thanksgiving, and I think that Thanksgiving, in my own opinion, is to be celebrated more than other holidays, because this is it's a time to, like I said, reflect on the things that have happened, the good things that have happened, and the family that you have.
Denise speaks for me.
If people would go on the internet or your public library and look up the beginning of Thanksgiving, all right, I think minds would change. All right,
Not mine.
I would not. I do not celebrate Thanksgiving. You know what I mean?
Why are we buying these turkeys?
Because I have done this. It's not funny,
Okay, I'm sorry.
right?
Okay.
Because I can't deprive other people
Right.
for something that I don't do myself. That's why. All right.
Okay.
And the Pilgrims at that dinner table killed the Indians. All right, and killed millions of other Native Americans, okay, and diseased them and raped them, okay. If you look at the history of Thanksgiving, all right, which I have, and anybody, you viewers out there, look up the history of Thanksgiving and see if next year, if you're still going to celebrate, because there's nothing to celebrate. All right.
Ron, we are driving our country.
Whole countries, whole civilizations were destroyed.
That's
We're
very
talking
true.
about millions of people.
That's very true, Ron. But as
Okay.
I mentioned to you before, we all were indoctrinated with the lie.
I was too.
We were all indoctrinated with the lie. But now the truth is, we have to take Thanksgiving and make it our own.
Yes.
Thank
we
you.
have to
There's
take
other
it and make
things.
it our
Yeah.
own.
There's other things that we can do for us, for ourselves. If you want to celebrate something, celebrate Martin Luther King's birthday, Malcolm X.
We do
some
that.
Some of our other the doctor that created plasma. You know, things of that nature. Not some rapist and murderer and diseaser.
They weren't all
You know
that,
what I mean?
Ron.
Okay, yes.
Okay.
Look at the history.
Not all of
Look
them.
up the history.
We can look at the history of who
See?
wrote the Constitution.
Right.
If we want to take everything apart,
We're not talking about that.
we
we're talking about
Thanksgiving. I
we're
got
talking about
that.
Thanksgiving,
I got
all
that.
right?
But what I'm saying is that there's evil in all of this stuff.
That's right.
But you have to take it and make it your truth. And
I
my
don't
truth,
have to take that and make it my truth.
No, my truth is, like I
Okay.
said, I am thankful. I
Right.
look at the word Thanksgiving, and I am thankful for the things that
My
have
mother's apple pie and
Yes.
all of that stuff.
At this
Calling
time,
all of the kids to the table.
At this time, we must bring the In My Opinion show to a close, but I want to thank our millions of viewers for watching the In My Opinion show, okay? And go on your internet and see the history of Thanksgiving. Until next time, this is Ronald Barry Robinson and friends saying, stay focused.